That is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, I'm troubled by your first headline here because I know we talked about, conservatives reacting to polls, not necessarily believing them. But then this part about, is this going to extend into the result of the election? Please tell me we're not talking about this.
Well, listen, apparently we already are. A reporter from the National Post asked Mark Carney if he's going to respect the results of the election. At which point he replied, "Don't import. They've got enough of that problem down in the States, but don't import it up here." But my concern is that, as we saw with the Trump administration, if you begin questioning everything, whether everything is legit, and you undermine whatever, how can I put it, credibility institutions have, guess what? No one believes anything. We saw, and in fact, another National Post report shows that at a conservative rally, people are showing up wearing T-shirts saying, "Do you believe the polls?" Carrying banners saying, "Do you believe the polls?" And saying things like, I've asked around all my friends. No one's ever been called for a survey. I think it's just crazy. Now, you can sit there and, it all depends on delivery, as you well know, Aaron. I can sit here and say, isn't it kind of funny? The Conservatives are leading by 23 points, then all of a sudden, Carney comes up, and all of a sudden the Liberals are leading by like 20, 22 points. Well, what's that about? I mean, and you can explain what it's about, but people just don't want to go into that narrative. They want to have the narrative that there's something fishy going on here. And I have to tell you, I think that if that kind of, how can I put it, resentment, that kind of frustration, because there are a lot of people out there who are looking at the polls and saying, "My God, we're going to get the Liberals for a fourth time. The Conservatives are going to get frozen out of power again." Don't kid yourself. I'm not saying it's going to be a national movement. I hope it isn't, and I hope it doesn't gain traction. But don't kid yourself if you start hearing either online or at rallies that maybe this election, the results of this election were cooked. This is where we are, I'm sorry to say, and it is a weird situation. Certainly when Carney won the leadership and in our country becomes prime minister. What's this about? He's not elected. What's he doing? Why is he doing all this? But this is how things work in this country. But what gets me the most is that this "Do You Believe the Polls" movement had only 12 Instagram followers as of this morning, and now has 100, and I'll probably have a lot more by the time next week rolls around, or by the time Election Day rolls around. But the other thing that's kind of crazy here is, as you know, the Conservatives have been saying, never mind the polls, look at the turnout we're getting for our rallies. And I swear to God, Aaron, I saw this online. I thought, this can't be true. So I went and checked it. CBC posted a report today. I don't know if you saw this. They counted heads. They counted heads with the Liberals, and they counted heads with the Conservatives. The 15,000 person rally in Edmonton for the Conservatives proved, in fact, by their count, to be 1,558 people.
No.
They brought a crowd size. I'll send you the link. They brought a crowd size expert in. He says, no, it's not that small. It's closer to 1,700.
Wow.
The Liberals said they had an 8,000 turnout for a rally they had in Ontario. Turns out. I beg your pardon. They said they had 1,800 people.
Right.
Turns out it was 710. So I can tell you, I've spent much of my career covering crowds, and you learn that there are certain ways you can count crowds on site rather reliably. Other times you can't because the crowd's too big. But if you are in a control situation, it's not a matter of some magical formula. You bloody count heads. That's how you do it. And that's what they've done with the pictures that have been posted by the Liberals and by the Conservatives of these crowds. And you know what? It seems maybe both are kind of, how can I put it, gilding the lily a little bit. But all that said, please, folks, do not read anything into turnout, especially for political rallies. The one fundamental rule or strategy for political organizers is, when you're staging an event, always book a room that's going to be too small for the crowd you have, because then reporters will write, "Oh, the crowd overflowed. It was a huge turnout for this rally." This is one of the oldest tricks in the book. Yeah. But all that said, Aaron, I get a little nervous. I just think the potential for that kind of anger and that kind of bile is out there, and I really hope that cooler heads prevail, and I really hope that much in the same way. And I mean, listen, it's probably just the internet amplifying a very small group of people, but I just hope that the idea that somehow we're entering the same zone as the Americans when it comes to, if something doesn't go your way, obviously it's rigged, fake news or otherwise. That's a dangerous place to be, and I just hope we don't go there.
I just want you to repeat that for people who may have fallen off their chair when you first said it. So that rally that everyone made such a fuss about when...
15,000.
Okay, they said first it was 10, then it was 12, so 15,000 people, and the count showed how many?
1,550.
Okay.
1,558, and they called in a crowd count expert who came up with 1,700.
Okay, obviously not the guy.
And there's a line in the CBC report that actually says, even though people may have been behind pillars or obscured from the camera, there's no way we missed 10,000
people. That's where most of them gather, is behind the pillars, yeah. Wow, that's quite the story. Okay, yeah. Look, I will point out, and I think I said this yesterday when it first came up, this idea of, can you trust the polls? When the Conservatives were that far ahead, did anyone bring this up at that time? Did Liberals go, this can't be possible? So large grain of salt necessary here,
exactly. And the other thing is, listen, I have issues with polls, not because I think they're fake, but as we know, they're online. They are less random than the actual random polls, because random polls, whether you're calling literally people at random, it's expensive, it's time consuming, and in this day and age, people don't pick up the phone if they don't recognize the number. So, it's very difficult to get a return. So what they do is they literally hire panels, online panels, people representative of the population, and each province. And you basically, hope for the best, and you hope that the findings are not going to be, how can I put it, perhaps twisted one way or another, because you keep dealing with the same people over and over, or they're expecting to give a certain answer. And that's why at the bottom of all these polls you say, an online poll cannot be assigned a margin of error. However, a sampling of this size in a really random poll would be, 3.2%, 19 times out of 20. But that said, it is not a random poll. So you can't be a zillion percent sure of the finding. Although what I'm looking at, and the amount of time you and I have spoken about the crazy ways that politics in this country have shifted over the past 2 months, I'm not at all surprised to see this change in the polls. The main protagonist that led to the 22-23% bump for the Tories is gone. Justin Trudeau's gone. So what are you going to do?
Let me move on to talk about the one who provides the most entertainment, possibly not in the best way. That's Yves-François Blanchet. So the deal here, he's going for broke, right? He's now asking for Bill 21 to be applied to all federal workers in the province as well, right?
Absolutely. And, listen, when you're trailing by 20, 22 points behind the Liberals in Quebec, I think you just pull out all the stops.
Sure.
And you basically go for broke. And so it's, yes, I want to have Bill 21 should be applied to the federal civil service, and we want to get rid of the federal multiculturalism policy here in Quebec. We also want to make sure that immigrants swear allegiance not to the monarchy, but if they're in Quebec, they swear it to the values of Quebec, and they do so in French. I mean, it's all over the top stuff. It's clear. It's almost like a swan song. It's like I'm going to go out big. But I mean, this is, and I'm saying this not because I doubt Mr. Blanchet's sincerity. I say this because absolutely nobody other than Yves-François Blanchet is talking about any of these issues. That in fact, if Quebec's interests are going to be defended, these are not the issues that Quebecers are concerned about defending right now. And I guess what's making, people like Yves-François Blanchet and Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon and the PECs and the Blocs very, very nervous is the fact that even here in Quebec, there's a realization that lucky thing we're part of this larger country right now, because we would be like grist for the mill. I mean, we'd be sort of at the same level as islands with penguins, getting told you have to pay duty on whatever it is you're sending in. So, I mean, like I say, the 29th of April, I think the landscape will have changed quite dramatically, not just in Quebec, but across the country. We'll see. But I guess my hat's off to him. Go big or go home, and he's certainly going big.
Last thing I want to ask you, because this is what I started the show with today, and got some very interesting reactions to this, including some texts that I couldn't even read off the air because I said they were borderline racist, but that's a whole other subject. Does Jean-François Roberge owe an apology to people when he said we can't accept the world's misery here anymore, referring to the immigrants trying to get into the country now?
I want to preface this by saying, our listeners would know you're not talking to a fan of Monsieur Roberge. But I'll tell you, I read his quotes from top to bottom, and I didn't see, it wasn't like when Jean Boulet, immigration minister, said 75% of immigrants don't work, don't speak English, all move to Montreal. No, I found it perhaps a bit blunt, but I didn't find it. I didn't go, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. The fact is, we don't have the resources to take in any more immigrants. It's as simple as that. It's not something that Robert is saying. It's something the country is realizing. It's something that, post Trudeau, people are realizing. Guess what? The door was wide open, but to a certain extent, there was only a limited amount of stuff in the cupboard, and we're realizing that now, and that's why we have to cut back on the levels of immigration. So no, I didn't find his comments to be over the top. As I say, blunt. He perhaps could have said it a little more, daintily. But no, I was not shocked by what he said.
Well, okay, daintily. I mean, he's a federal, provincial minister. Yeah. I mean, don't you at some point have to take responsibility? We always say words matter for how you say things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not. Would I have said it that way? No.
Okay.
But I didn't look at what he said and understand that. Oh my God, he's going after him.
Yeah, you didn't take it as a slap in the face to immigrants.
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm trying to get opinion here.
I like to think my antennae are pretty well attuned, but I think in this particular instance, and the fact that just a lot of people coming out from the States in looking at Trump, but I didn't get the impression he was saying anything other than what what's his name? Francois Legault has said, we don't have the resources to do this.
Then why not just say we don't have the resources to do this, and instead of saying we can't take in all the world's misery? You're equating one with the other, and they're both fine.
Well, perhaps he may have used a bad collection of words. But all that said, no, I didn't even find that. Sorry.
No, there's nothing to be sorry. That's fine. I want to know what you thought about this. We're going to ask our listeners exactly that. James, thank you. You have a great weekend.